Hello, everyone. This is Charles Walter Buntjer, and it's the year 2025. I just celebrated my 85th birthday, can you believe it, in Iceland. Now I'm going to show you some pictures of the short trip I took. It was only 4 days, but it was a very special price. I would like to make a suggestion. I've never done it before, but everyone said at 85 I should use a wheelchair. Well, at the airport, I got to JFK in New York City, and the uh, Terminal 1 was where I landed on United, but then I had to go to Terminal 2 for Icelandic Air. It was like 3/4 of a mile away. I got a wheelchair. They pushed me a block along the hallways. Then they went on an elevator and went down and went another block, then up on the elevator, and then in a tram, aerial tram. And then we went for a few blocks, and then we got off and had to go down stairs again and then across the street. So when we got to Icelandic Air, we had to go through everything again like I did in San Francisco. They checked everything. We had to go through security, and then I got on the plane and flew off to Iceland. So I think it's a good idea as one gets older, and if one's not used to the airport layout, to get a wheelchair and have someone push you. You can give them a tip, and it's well worth the time and the money. We landed in Iceland, and about 20 of us went through customs and went outside waiting for a ride downtown to our hotels. It was 6 a.m. or around 7 a.m., I'm not sure, pitch black, and it was pouring down rain. They put us on a bus to go downtown to the downtown bus terminal. We got down there. We'd gotten soaked trying to get to the bus. Then I wanted to go to the bathroom, $4. So you better have your charge card or you're in trouble. Then we got on small buses, about 20 of us, and we had to stand with our luggage. And we bounced around and stopped, and she said, "Oh, this is the hotel for the three of you." And thank heavens it was a couple, and they had their phone with a map on it to find out where our hotel was. It was about 3 blocks away. It was pouring down rain, about 8 inches of water in the street and 2 inches on the sidewalk. What a ride it was to get to the hotel. We went into the hotel, and I was soaked, and they said the room wouldn't be ready until 1 in the afternoon. It was like maybe 9 o'clock in the morning, and I really got mad. I said, "I'm 85, and you're going to tell me I'm going to sit here in wet clothes until 1 o'clock or more." They said they try to get somebody to clean a room a little early, if possible. I was not happy, and they said, "Why don't you go in and have breakfast, and we'll see if we can get a room a little sooner for you." "Oh, sorry, it's $40 for breakfast." $40, I was pissed. They gave me a chit for a free breakfast, which was better. I went in for breakfast, but I was not in a good mood. A young woman came by and she said, I heard your story and I feel sorry for you. So she said, I'm upgrading you to a better room. So as soon as you're through with your breakfast, come over and I'll put you in your room. So I finished breakfast and she gave me the keys to the room, and up there I went and took off my wet clothes and stuff and got in bed and passed out because I'd been up for 30 hours. I looked out the window and it was pouring down rain and it was cloudy as could be. I woke up around 4 in the afternoon and I looked on my iPad. It said that from New York City to Iceland was terrible storms, winds, rains, and to be very careful. I then got a message that the evening tour was canceled. Well, it was Northern Lights. You weren't going to see anything. So I went downstairs and had a glass of wine and sat in the lobby by the fireplace and relaxed. The next day, I got up and got a cab and went down to the bus station again. And there were about 40 people, and we got into a shuttle and off we went for the day tour. We drove about 2 hours. We saw an electrical generating plant that used the steam from the geysers to run the equipment. We saw pipes that ran about 15, 20 miles long that took the hot water and pumped it down to the city so that the radiators in the buildings gave warm temperatures to the rooms, and also hot water in the showers. So the electricity and the hot water was basically free. We saw horses that were very short and they were unique to Iceland. They said they had 5 gaits instead of just 3 like most horses have. And they said you could go and put a tray, hold a tray with glasses full of cocktails on it, and they would run, and they were so smooth that nothing would spill. I'm not sure if that's true or not, but it sounds good. Then we went and saw the big geyser. It was all right. And then it was 3 o'clock, and instead of us going to the next place, they said we were going to go and shop. And then on the bus, and we did get to see this big rent in the ground where the continent was splitting apart, or the island, I should say, is splitting apart, the European plate and the American plate, and a waterfall there. And we walked around and took some pictures, and then it started to sleet. So by the time we got back on the bus, we were covered with snow, but at least it melted fast. Then we drove for another half hour, almost went into a ditch because of the wind. And then he said, well, we're stopping here so you can look at the lake. Well, it was pitch black, pouring down rain, wind, horrible weather, and of course, a shop to go in and buy things. I stayed on the bus with a woman, and we said, we're not going to get off. And for what reason? They came back and they said, well, we think we saw something in the distance, but we're not sure. The pictures were, of course, just dark. So much for that. And then we started driving back to the city, and we almost got blown off of the road a couple of times. But we made it back to the hotel about 7 o'clock, and I went upstairs and relaxed for a while to get ready for my 85th birthday dinner. I went down for my birthday dinner, and there were two tables next to mine with couples from England. So we all five talked away and had a good time. I ordered Caesar salad, French fries with a mayonnaise dip, and a glass of white wine. $75. So much for that. The food was good, I have to say that at least. And the waiter heard it was my birthday, so he gave me a creme brulee and a candle lit on it. And then everybody in the restaurant sang happy birthday to me, which was nice. And then I had another cocktail in the bar, and then I had another one in the lobby by the fireplace. Now, the next day, I got up around, I don't know, 11 a.m., and there was supposed to be another tour at 1. Suddenly, there was this huge explosion, and lights flashed in my room. It almost blinded me. And I thought, it's lightning. How close was it? And then I looked out the window, and it was pouring down rain. And then it was snowing, it was sleeting, and then they had hurricane winds. Winds. I said, oh my gosh, I have a feeling the tour is off today. So I looked on my iPad, and it said that the storm was from New York to Iceland, and they warned people even in New York at the airport to be careful driving because the winds were so dangerous. And the winds were just horrendous. So I went downstairs, and I thought maybe I'd walk around a little bit to get a view of the town, but there's no way you could go outside because it was just nasty as could be. Now, the good thing is that there was a bakery attached to the hotel, and there you could get a cup of coffee and a croissant or so for $10. Now, you could have 2 or 3 cups of coffee if you wanted. So that was a great place to go and be able to have a little bit of food and also not to have to pay too much. And there were lots of young people with their laptops in there. So I got to chat with all kinds of people and stuff. Then I went back to my room and took a nap and watched some television. And that night I went down, and before they closed at 8 o'clock in the bakery, and coffee and a croissant. And then I got a glass of wine and I sat in the lobby by the fireplace. And a woman and her daughter came down and sat next to me. They were maybe 55 and 35. And they travel quite a bit together. She has a daughter about 5. And she called her daughter on FaceTime, and it was such a sweet, it's just so nice to hear them talk and stuff. And the husband, he liked to stay home with the daughter, and then his wife would go with her mother, and they traveled for 4 or 5 days, some take quick trips and stuff. And that was very, very nice. And they asked me what was going on in San Francisco. So I told them about people who are trans. So I started to talk about one who was going to change from a man into a woman. And as I was talking, another couple came in and sat down next to us, 2 women about 35 or 38 years old. They laughed. They're from England also, and they said, "Oh, we'd love to hear your story. Don't stop." So I told them all about the one person who was kind of turning into a woman, and then the woman who was turning into a man and grew a beard, and then decided that she was going to go back to being a woman, and then decided to become a lesbian. And they just cracked up laughing. They loved the stories. And suddenly it was really strange but funny. The 2 women sitting by themselves, the one said, "Oh, this is my good friend. We've been friends for like 15, 20 years. Well, that's nice." She said, and she says, "She's straight. I'm a lesbian." And we all said, "Well, that's nice to know. So I don't want you to think that she's a lesbian too, because she's straight, but I'm a lesbian." Well, of course, I was sitting there and I looked over and I said, "Oh, nobody would ever recognize you as being a lesbian when you're kind of chunky and you got a t-shirt on and flat-chested and you got short black hair." And I said, "Nobody'd ever realize you were a lesbian." Well, everybody, including the lesbian, thought that was hysterical. So everybody laughed away. I had another glass of wine and relaxed by the fireplace. And by that time, it was almost midnight and time to get ready to pack up and go to the airport the next morning for my trip back to San Francisco. Now, it was Thursday morning, and I got up and I got everything together. I went down and called a cab, and the wind was horrible and the rain. And we were driving to the airport, and the driver said he'd never seen weather like this. We almost went into the ditch a few times. It was so bad. But we did get to the airport, and the airport was expensive like everything else in the island. Can you imagine the whole island has 400,000 people? San Francisco has 800,000. That's like half of San Francisco living on this big island, and that's it. Now, they want to make money one way or another, so you couldn't go and sit by the gate where your plane was going to take off. You had to sit in the area where they had the big store or they had food. So a lot of older people were not happy because they had to sit, at tables or in booths or something. And then all over were big televisions, videos. And they would tell you when they were going to start boarding, and they would give you the gate number and said, "Don't go there before 20, 30 minutes, after the announcement." So my flight came up, and I walked over to where the gate was, and there must have been 100 people in line already. And I said, well, where did the seniors go? There is no seniors. I said, well, are there chairs? No, there aren't. Everybody stands there. So I pushed in front of the line. I thought, screw this. And we went to get on the plane. Well, it was a bus. So they took us out in the middle of the runway, and then we had to climb up these steep, slippery metal steps into the plane, plus dragging our luggage with us. Just as we get on the plane, I couldn't help but laugh. The sun suddenly came out and the wind stopped, and it turned into a beautiful afternoon. So much for that. But that was okay. I had a wonderful time. We're very exciting. And you know, how often are you going to say you went to someplace like Iceland for your birthday? So, cheers for this. And we'll see what happens on my 86th birthday. Where will I go? I was thinking about going to San Salvador, or I haven't been to Tahiti. Oh, the one big place I haven't been to is Japan. I wonder, could I go to Japan next year? Time will tell.